hell, Nara. According to Jainism, there isn't a part of this universe we haven't been to before. There isn't a life form we haven't been before. We see the ants, we see the trees, we see a deer being chased by a lion. We eat vegetables, we eat fruits. Jainism says each and every one of these lives we have been, not just once, but infinite times. And after much, 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 much effort and much, much, much shedding of karma, we've attained a human life, Manushya Bhav. And at one level, the realization of this is sansar and the four gatis of sansar. So all of these different reincarnations that we take can be known as sansar on one level. And to compare sansar, so if this is sansar, what is not sansar? And what is not sansar is moksha or salvation. So at a basic level, that's sansar, and reflection on that is sansar bhavana. Does that make sense to everyone so far? Yeah. Now,
Sorry, Mukul, do you mind just like going back to basics? Because
yeah,
this
of
is not
course.
so easy to understand.
Yeah, it's a complex
And
topic.
it's a complex topic, and if you just literally just I literally call it Jainism for dummies because I
Yeah,
think it really
absolutely.
has to be at a 101 level.
Yeah, yeah,
Please.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
So,
thanks.
so according
Um,
to Jainism,
sorry, Mukul.
yeah,
Sonia's just written saying that you're still screen sharing, so if you can stop screen sharing.
yes, stop
Um,
sharing, no problem. Okay, is that all right?
yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay. So, according to Jainism, there's four different places we can be born, okay? Human, animal kingdom, heaven, and hell. Has everyone seen a satyo here? The rice satya that we make when we go to the derasar. The swastika. Yeah. So in that, there's four different boxes. That represents these four different realms or places that we can be born. We all understand what human life is and what all of us are. Now, apart from that, we can all see in front of us with our eyes the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom. We can see Jainism says 8.4 million species of life. 8.4 million. Chorashi lakh, which goes from plants to earth to fire to water to different species of animals. This whole realm is another place where we can be born. The third place is known as Devlok or heaven. The concept of heaven in Jainism is not a permanent state where we can be born, but a transient place where good deeds are rewarded. But there comes an end to that state. That's known as Devlok or heaven. And finally, Narak or hell, which is similar to the Christian concept of purgatory, where it's a transient place where bad deeds, the maximum punishment in this world is you can die once. What about Hitler? What about Stalin, who killed tens of thousands of people? So, according to Jainism, heaven and hell exist as a mechanism to balance karma. Human, animal and plant, heaven and hell. That's 4 states of existence. Does that make sense? And a 5th state is known as moksha or nirvana or siddhshila, which is a place of pure happiness, of peace. Okay? Now, Jainism says since time immemorial, we have been transmigrating between these 4 planes of existence. And there isn't a part of this universe we haven't been to. There isn't a species we haven't been. From a saint to a sinner, every possible permutation of karmas has occurred and will occur until we attain salvation or moksha. The sansar is known as, I'm going to say the Sanskrit and then I'm going to translate it, okay? Dukmai, Duk Falak, Duk Anubandhak, which means in its very nature, there's more pain and less happiness. We may feel that that's not the case. We look at our lives and we see that we're relatively happy on the whole. But what Jainism says is we're extremely, extremely lucky to be in the state that we're in. 75% of this world of humans is starving. Beyond that, if we look at the animal kingdom, there's a lot more unhappiness and less happiness. Most of them are predators or prey. And that's just the 5 sense lives. Got the 4 sense, the 3 sense, the 2 sense, and the 1 sense lives. Take trees, for example. When it's freezing cold, we put on clothes. A tree can't do that. If someone attacks us with an axe, we can run away. A tree can't do that. If we're hungry, we go to food. A tree can't do that. So as the development becomes less and less, the relative pain becomes more. The 4 states of existence are known as the outer sansar, or the manifestation of sansar on the outside. And a reflection of that is sansar bhavana. But Jainism goes deeper and says that the outer sansar only exists because of our inner sansar. I'll say that again. Jainism says that the outer sansar only exists because of the inner sansar. So what is outside is within. Even the whole concept of the universe, if you look at Jainism and you go into it in detail, it's in the shape of a person, and that's a different topic. But what's the microcosm is the macrocosm, and vice versa. What drives the sansar within us is said to be 2 things. Lobh, which is greed, and trishna, which is known as desire. What Jainism says is when we truly, truly conquer the greed and the desire within us, the outside sansar, will disappear and we will attain salvation or moksha. Now, I've talked a lot just now, and that's just an introduction to this topic at the moment. Let's have some interaction now, and then I can carry on. I just want to make sure everyone's with me, and then we can talk a bit more. Any comments, questions, and let's have some interaction, but we can talk a bit more.
Hi, this is Sajal.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Yeah, I got a quick question. I was interested in what you said. So you said, with 5 senses, you've got 4 senses, 3 senses, 2 senses beings. You gave the example, the analogy of a tree being, cut by an axe, etc., etc. And I was just sitting there thinking, we have the sense of pain, we have the sense of feeling. What I'm trying to say is it an equal comparison? Because they may not have that sense, they have that feeling. So if you take an axe to a tree, are you doing karma? Because actually there is no feeling or pain on that tree. And, if you pull a fruit off the tree to eat it, you're doing that to sustain yourself.
Yeah.
But are you really doing karma to the tree? Because can the tree feel it and pain? And the reason I'm asking this is because I think it's relative, and I'm not, in my mind, I'm not sure that is karma, but I just thought I'd ask the question.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Can everyone hear me? I'll answer the question. Yeah. So everything that we do has some karma attached. As the senses develop, the degree of pain increases. We have to sustain our life. We have to eat something in order to live. And this is the paradoxical thing about this sansar. For me to live, to put it bluntly, I need to kill another creature. To put it really, really crudely. For me to live, something else has to die. Because I cannot get my life force from a piece of wood. I cannot get my life force from an inanimate object. Think of anything that we eat is something that has some life force. Now, what Jainism says is, as the senses develop, the degree of knowledge increases and the degree of pain also increases. However, the first sense is the sense of touch. So there is some pain that a tree feels, but there's a lot more pain that a cow feels. Which is why the degree of karma increases as the harm is done, but as the degree of senses increases in that life. Karma is also to do with intention. It's also to do with mind, speech, and action. But you look at the lives of our sadhus and our sadhvis, who take 5 great vows, Panch Mahavrat, of which the first is absolute non-violence, where they don't cook themselves either. What do? They do gochari. Gochari means they take a tiny, tiny amount of suitable food from each house such that that house doesn't need to cook more, and so no extra harm is caused. Even they are doing some karma. Until we attain moksha or salvation, every action will contain some karma. But the degree is relative, which is why the perfect state of existence and the perfect state of happiness is when we don't harm any other life. Because just like a boomerang, what you bring out will come back to you. As your life gets purer and purer and purer, your happiness should increase more and more and more. They say a fully practicing sadhu or a sadhvi who is completely at peace with themselves and does a minimum amount of karma really has a higher level of happiness than even someone in the 12th heaven or devlok. The happiness in heaven is a material happiness. The happiness of a truly practicing sadhu or a sadhvi is a spiritual happiness, which is different. Does that answer the question, Sejal?
Yeah, it does. Although I've got more questions, but I'm not sure it's relevant to this session today. But it spurred more questions in my mind. But thank you.
There's always, so many questions.
Thank you.
Anyone else at this stage have more questions? And please ask them, because if we're all on the same level of faith and understanding as we progress, then we can progress on this together.
You just mentioned like whether certain, humans can find a solution when there's an issue, right? So cold, you just put on like something warm.
Yeah.
But and you mentioned a tree, but then like nature has its own way of actually protecting itself and having its identity in terms of how it cohabits, right? Just an example, I remember where I found a tree somewhere in the Amazon where it was actually the ants live in that tree, and there's a relationship where the ants take care of the tree and the tree provides them shade, right? So I know when you say that it's not able to, from what you see, it's actually, I don't know how to put it, but it does have what it's suited for and what it's able to protect itself with, right? We know that nature, there's certain trees which protect themselves when they find something within its habitation as well. So I'm not quite sure what you were trying to say there. That's what I'm trying to say.
So they all have some, trees. What are the characteristics of life? Growth. So trees grow towards the light. Feeding. There's different characteristics of life. The ability, trees do have ability to do certain things, but the ability we have to modulate our surroundings, to do stuff because of our thoughts and our free will, is much greater than the relative ability that a one sense life will be. They do have certain abilities, absolutely, but the degree of development of those abilities increases as the senses increases. Anything that has life will have some ability to modulate things, to do things, but the degree of that ability, and hence the frustration of not being able to do that, is there. So the degree of ability of a tree to protect itself, to do things, it's not absent, but it's a lot less than our ability. Does that make sense?
So then what you're also can we just put it in the same way where you say the five senses, and I think you've touched on that, where it brings a lot of unhappiness there as well, right? So it's kind of tied in with that. Well, that degree, as we start accumulating more senses, i.e. five senses, we're also then susceptible, become our greatest predators as well, right?
Yeah. Our ability to do good and bad also increases as our senses increases. In fact, even a lion or a crocodile propensity to do bad, a human can do more bad than a lion as well. Of course, they can do more good than most animals. But because of this mind and the development of this mind, as a species, we can do much greater punya or good and much greater pap or bad. So it's a double-edged sword. We have this power which can really set us back so far, or it can bring us forward a lot as well, depending on how we use this power. Yeah? Okay. Any more questions, anyone, at this stage?
Hi, Mukul.
Oh, hi, Shalina. Yes.
One question. So does it mean that one sense like a tree would have less karma or bind itself less karma than somebody like a 5 cents person?
Potentially, yes. Because it has less capability, less ability. Because of that less development, see the eye of knowledge. What would you say? We say samyak darshan, samyak gnan, and samyak charitra, of faith, knowledge, and conduct. The degree of awareness is less. So the propensity to good and evil is also less. But it's not a place of happiness either. You know, a lot of places will have a rose-tinted view of nature. What Jainism says is we shouldn't have this rose-tinted view of the animal kingdom or of nature. And part of the reason behind that is to really press home to us how precious our human life is, how rare our human life is. That's touched on more on the 11th reflection of Bhavna, called Bodhi Durlabh, which is the rarity of this human life. But even here, part of it is to remind us how rare and unique this chance we have had in this human life compared to every other species. And when you truly realize the value of something you have, you know, a 4-year-old child, you give a 4-year-old child $1 million check, and they might start drawing funny faces on it and using it for Play-Doh. But you give a 40-year-old that $1 million check, and they'll take much more care of it because they realize how hard that is to get, how rare that is. In a similar way, it's not to say that we're better than any other life, but to realize that this treasure that we have is so hard to come by. And forget that the human life, take it a step further. How many of the human life kingdom are born in a place where they can do anything other than worry about where their next meal is coming from? Very few. Say 25% of this world. Now, from that 25%, how many are born in a place, in a family, where from day one, they haven't been brought up in a way that each and every meal comes from killing another 5-cent animal? Take it a step further. From the 1 million or 20,000 or 100,000 or so Jains, how many are born in a family where those values are actually pressed home, taught? And from that 100,000 remaining, how many themselves have that inner willpower to go beyond the rest of this maya of sansar, the rest of the illusion, the rest of the distractions, and actually think, wow, yes, this is something? From those, how many even have the inclination or the time to dedicate to this before this transient human life, which is minuscule in the space of time, finishes? How many people say, who old Tyson at who dharma karis, When I get old, I will practice religion. How many people get to that old age? How many old people do you know are healthy enough to even stop worrying about their health at that age? In this Sansar Bhavana itself, it talks, one of the aspects is this human life. For the stage of babyhood, one is dependent on one's parents and others on every action. Then the focus is education. Will I get a job? Then the focus is, will I get married? Then the focus is financial. Let me set myself. Let me set a career. One has kids. What's going to happen to my kids? Let me look after them. Running, 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 running. Finally, I've reached 60. I've reached the age of retirement. Now can I focus on my soul? Or suddenly I've got cataract. Suddenly I can't walk properly. Suddenly I've got this illness. Within this whole of this human life, those moments to better ourselves, to go beyond feeding and sleeping and reproducing and gathering, whether it's money or nuts in the case of a squirrel, those moments are few and far between. And before we know it, this hard to get lottery ticket of this human life has finished. I'm going to switch over in maybe in the next 5-10 minutes to my phone. So if I come out for a minute or so, Darshana, just put me back in. But I'll carry on for now. And there's a story I want to talk about called Madhubindu, which illustrates the nature of the sansar in the form of a metaphor and an allegory, and it really drives home this concept to us. But let's take another pause. Any questions at this stage from what I've said?
Hi, Mukul. I have a question. So if
Hey,
we
Sanjana.
hi, so if we are going to evolve from the 1 cent to 5 cents,
Yeah.
what is how do you get there? And does every form of living form evolve from 1 to 5 just progressively, or is it then attached to your karmas? But if a one sort of sense being does not have that capability of having differentiate between different karmas, then how do you progress from the 1 to the 2 to the 3 to the 4 to the 5? So it is just, of course, everybody has to go through those living forms, but then what is it that will make you attain to that 5 cents form?
So there's something in Jainism, the concept is called Akam Nirjara. What does that mean? Nirjara is a shedding of karmas. Effectively through suffering. A tree suffers the cold, the heat, the elements, different things. As those karmas come to fruition, the load of the karmas on that soul gets less and less, and they progress. So if we take Darwin's theory of evolution, now the West has obviously has taken the Darwin's theory of evolution. The original Darwin's theory of evolution didn't apply on a global scale. That was a misrepresentation at one stage. Darwin's theory of evolution, according to Jivichar, is applied at the individual level, at the level of the soul, progressing through, which is part of the reason why it's so bad to kill a 5 sensed animal creature life who is through so much effort and pain, has gone through all of these stages, and then with one kind of thing you are crushing, ending that development, which is another part of this. But so there's a state called Nigod. Nigod is where in one body there's infinite souls. And the state of Nigod is so we have a term called gunmul, which is potatoes, carrots, onions, garlic, and other sort of similar things, which in the smallest part there's infinite lives of this nigod. And when you study in detail Jain biology, it talks about how these then progress through to from this one sense to Prutu kai, up kai, teo kai, vau kai, earth, wind, water, fire, the elements. Then then you have two-sensed insects, ants, worms, five-sensed animals, humans. So there's progression, and as one's awareness increases, um, one can accelerate or decelerate. So animals, can you'll find stories of animals doing certain good and bad deeds, and as you progress, your ability to do good and bad increases. But as you shed karma and as you suffer, you will naturally progress through these states. But it's a slow and arduous process. Does that answer the question, Sanjana? Are you in a place where you can turn your video on? I do remember you, but just
Sorry, I'm unable to because of
no problem.
yeah.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, just somewhat, but I think from the point of the tree,
Yeah.
how is a tree able to make that decision, or how is it able to do good karmas? I know you're saying by suffering, you're de-shedding and then you're progressing to the next two sense life form.
Yeah.
But if the whole basis is you do good deeds or good karmas and lessen your bad karmas, then that way you're, in some ways like in a plus, and then you progress to the next life form. Is that the right understanding, or is that not something?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, and that's is part of the reason why a human life is so valuable, because it's so easy in the human life to do good compared to the other life forms. In the other life forms, it's a much slower process because of this mind, the development that we have. So for a tree, it's a tree suffers for hundreds of years. Oak tree, it slowly, as the load of karmas on that soul gets less, the development will will increase. But it's a slow process. But then you think of the if you go into it in detail, it's a logical explanation. Like if you look at any other philosophy, it it just says, some of them will say they're not alive, they're just, others say they were created by God, others say um various things. But whenever those questions arise, then the concept of fairness, why was one selected to be a tree, one selected to be a human, always arises. And if you study this in detail, it it does answer that question. It says just because we've reached human doesn't mean we're safe. It says until you reach the other side of that shore on your boat, you can go into any of these life forms again, at any point. If like snakes and ladders. To be honest, snakes and ladders originated in India. I don't know if you guys know this, but snakes and ladders, the whole game came to the West many years after it came. And there's a Jain snakes and ladders, which is actually the original where the sap city where it came from. But yeah, that's just an aside.
I think for me, I'm just trying to understand that as such, the one sense life form has no control over how it can evolve to the next life form. Of course, you're saying it's just through years of, I guess, going through the paces of pain or suffering, but they are not in control because they're unable to think, or it's only the human form to some extent are the ones who are in control, and which is why, of course, it is the most precious form to have to progress to salvation. But at the same time, I'm thinking, okay, but then from the one form to the two form, what is that sort of progression? And is there anything else which helps? So from a 5% form, you can drop down if you've done really bad karmas in your Manushya life.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And this is exactly why Sansar is known as Dukhmai, Dukhfalak, Dukhanubandak, which means the moments of pain are more and the transient moments of pleasure or happiness are less, which is why the whole motivation for moksha or salvation comes about. Because effectively, what it's saying is there's an axe hanging over everybody's head, whether that's the axe of death or the axe of a snake in terms of the game of snakes and ladders and of falling. And until the boat reaches the other side of the shore, it can always sink. In fact, Jainism goes further. Maybe sadhus and sadhvis and people who are following the path of Bhagwan or householders who are doing it are inside the boat. Maybe many of the others are holding, if you take that metaphor further, are holding onto the sides of the boat through whatever things they can do. This brings me to the story. This story will illustrate the concept of sansar a bit more clearly. There's a man. He's being chased by an elephant. He runs away from this elephant. As he does, he jumps over a ravine or a pit and he grabs onto a rope. The elephant sees he's grabbed onto a rope which is hanging from the branch of a tree, and the elephant starts shaking this tree. The rope that the man is swinging from, he looks up and he sees a black mouse and a white mouse. The black mouse and the white mouse are nibbling away at this rope. He looks down and he sees 4 alligators waiting to eat him. As this is happening and he's swinging, the rope upsets a beehive and lots of bees come out and start stinging him. As all of this is happening, a Deviman or a spaceship comes from the sky with 3 people inside. And they say to him, "We will save you from this predicament. Take our hand and come inside the spaceship." This man notices that from the beehive there are small, small drops of honey falling, mud or honey. He says to the 3 people inside the spaceship or the Deviman, "I'll come with you. Let me just have this next drop of honey." And he sticks his tongue out for the next drop of honey. But the spaceship can't stop. And as he waits for the drop of honey, the ship slowly passes by. The man represents all of us. The elephant represents disease, death, and old age. The string or the rope represents our life. The black mouse represents night, and the white mouse represents day. The 4 alligators represent the 4 guttis or the 4 states of existence: human, heaven, animal, and hell. They also represent the four kashais: Krodh, anger; man, pride; maya, deceit; and lobh, greed. The bees stinging him represent Adi, Vyadhi, and Upadhi, the different worries at different stages of life. The honey represents temptations and the transient moments of happiness and pleasure that we get. The Deviman, or the spaceship, represents the path of Dharma. The three people inside represent Darshan, Gnan, and Charitra: faith, knowledge, and conduct, and the path of spirituality and following that. Every day, one day and one night is taken from us, as the white mouse and the black mouse of day and night eat away at the string of our life. Ayushya ye dori tuti re jati, Jivana yatra purana thata. Yeah. Does that metaphor make sense to everyone? While you all think about that, I'm just going to switch to my phone. Okay.
Mukul, could you explain what you said in English? What that
of
was,
course.
please?
In English, yes. What terms did I use that were different, and I'll explain them.
All of the Gujarati Hindi words.
Fine. Ayushya means life, okay? Ayushya Dori means the string of life. Dori is string. Ayushya is life. Tuti Rejati means it's breaking away. Our string of life. You know, we all celebrate our birthdays. You know, my daughter was 4 years old, Hamra. She was so happy. She can't wait till she's 10. She can't wait till she's 20. At some point, we get depressed each time we get a birthday. At some point. But really, each day and each night, we're losing a day and night of our human life. That's the string and what the string represents in terms of the metaphor. The other term I mentioned was Krodh, Man, Maya, Lobh. Yeah? Krodh is anger, Man is pride, Maya is deceit, and Lobh is greed. These are all known as kashais. Interestingly, the term kashai in Sanskrit, okay? Kash actually means sansar, or the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. And I is that which increases. So anything that increases our cycle of transmigration in these four states of existence is known as a kashai. So anger, greed, ego, and deceit are those at a basic level. There's a saying in Mahavir Bhagwan's last speech, in his last 72 hours, in the Uttar Dhyana Sutra, which is his last words, his last sermon. In that, there's a line: anger destroys goodwill. Deceit destroys friendship. Pride destroys humility. But everything is destroyed by greed. And in fact, greed is the last of these gush eyes to go. Lobh pap no bap che. Greed is the father of all sin. And hence we come back to the inner sansar, which is driven by greed and desire, which drive all at the core, if you think about it deeply, drive all sin. And it's that sin which keeps us in and drives sansar. And the reflection on the nature of this sansar, this world, this metaphor, and there's many, many more metaphors that can show this to us in different angles. Another one I can relate. Imagine a boat, okay, in an ocean. When the boat is on the ocean, it still floats. But if the water gets inside the boat, it will quickly sink. In the same way, while we live in this world, in this sansar, we may not drown. But if we get so attached, too attached, and we allow the sansar to come within us, if the water comes inside the boat, it doesn't take long for the boat to sink. If we allow these emotions, these rag, these dwesh, the revenge, to consume us, it doesn't take long for the boat to sink. Hu sansar ma chu, tyare hu tari jais, haji. While my boat is on the ocean, it still has a chance to get to the shore. But sansar mari andar avi jase, to hu dubi jais. But if sansar comes within me, if the water comes inside the boat, it doesn't take long for the boat to sink. Yeah? So this is a very, very deep topic, and then I've literally just touched the surface. But it really turns on its head, you know, how do we see this world? I mean, people have seen the movie The Matrix, and I'm doing a face-to-face session on the 12 bhavnas and all 12 of these reflections on the 11th of May at ECTA Center. We haven't put out the information and an advert for this yet, but obviously everyone's invited, where we'll talk about not just Sansar Bhavna, but all the others, what they are, but they're all ways to see, you know, we look at an optical illusion and we see one picture, but then we look at it in a different way and we see something different. In the same way, everyone desires happiness, but it's just that the concept of happiness is different in each person, and deeds are different because the understanding is different. And so Jainism says that we first aim is to look at the understanding or the faith and the knowledge, and then naturally one will want to go to the path of ultimate happiness rather than transient happiness. I'm going to switch to the phone for the last. In fact, we've only got a few minutes left. I've probably got enough power on this. Does anyone have any questions? Because I've just said so much here, said quite a lot, and it's quite, you know, concepts to get your head around. Some of the concepts may be quite alien, so please, anyone, maybe someone who hasn't said anything yet, just share some thoughts, some comments, some questions, anything you want. Did that make sense, Darshana? The translation of some of the concepts.
It did. Thank you. We have Sanjana who wants to know this name of the story that you said.
Madhubindu. In fact, this story, you won't only find it in Jainism. You'll find the original within Jainism, but there's adaptations of it in Hinduism, in Buddhism, in Islam. And you'll find that with elements of universal truths, you'll find adaptations of it. There's, you know, we don't have time today, but there's the Pardoner's Tale from the Canterbury Tales from Chaucer, which we studied in English literature in A-level English lit. That's from the 14th century. That actually comes from a Jain story. Similarly, this Madhubindu, Madhubindu, is found. I've made a small video on it, which I'm happy to share. If anyone wants to see it, just send me a message and I'll share. I'll share it with you. But it's called Madhubindu. It's a famous painting as well. You know, you may even see it in some places when you go to India and stuff. Yeah. Some chat. Oh. Matubindo, yes. Okay. How much power have I got left? Okay, I'm gonna switch to my phone for the last couple of minutes. Do you wanna just say anything you wanna say, Darshana? And in the meantime, I'm gonna switch to my phone while anyone thinks of any final questions. Is that all right?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if there's no questions, we can wrap it up. But Mukul, that was a really interesting session. I think that's probably left people with a food for thought. And if it's okay with you, if people can message directly to you or message Sandeep Bhai with questions, that would be good.
Absolutely. I made a small video that summarizes some of the concepts. If you'd like to see it, just send me a message and I'll forward it to you. And 11th of May at Ekta Center. If anyone wants to come, we'll talk a bit more about some of these things. Sejul, I saw your thing. Darshana has my number. Just get her to send it and then I can forward it to you. Because I won't know where to find you and stuff. Yeah, not a problem.
Brilliant. So just a couple of announcements. So we've got Ambil starting on Monday, so everyone's welcome to come to Derasa. And then we've got Mahavir Janma Kalyanuk on the 21st of April. So please do come to the Oshawa Centre. Our next session will be on the 24th of Tirthankars on the 25th of April. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you, Mukul, for your session today.
Cool. Should we end with Naukar mantra?
Yeah.
Tamne balut, Darshana?
Okay, I'll say it. I'll say it. I'm not as good as you, but let me say it.
No, you say it. You say
it. Okay. Namo Arihantaram, Namo Siddharam, Namo Ayaryaram, Namo Uvvajayaram, Namo Loya Savvasahuram. Eso Pancha Namo Karo, Savva Pava Parasaro, Mangalaram Cha Savvesim, Padamam Have Mangalam. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And if we have said anything, please do forgive us.
Michame Dugdam. Jin, anything said against the scriptures, obviously we're all learning together, we're all doing this swadhyay together, and I could have made mistakes. So enamate batano, manochan kaya, Michame Dugdam, Michame Dugdam, Michame Dugdam.